The galaxy knew humans as the kind ones. For 60 years since Earth first joined the Galactic Assembly, humanity had earned a strange reputation. They were the species that smiled when others threatened them. They were the ones who built hospitals on destroyed worlds and offered food to those who insulted them. Other species called them weak. Some called them stupid. But humans simply continued being polite. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dawn, watching the stars through the massive windows. She was a tall woman with streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen too many failed peace talks. Her ship floated near the border world of Nu, a human colony that had grown from a small settlement to a city of 4.2 million people in just 40 years. "Admiral," said Captain, her second in command. He was younger than her with a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue. "The ships have crossed into neutral space, 17 warships. They're heading straight for us." Did not panic. She had dealt with the Dominion before. They were creatures, tall and covered in hard shells, with 4 arms and eyes that showed no emotion. Their empire was built on conquest. They respected only strength and saw kindness as a disease. "Open a channel," said calmly. "Admiral," with respect, said, his voice tight with frustration. "We've talked to them 15 times this year. They don't listen. They don't care. Maybe it's time we showed them something other than words." Looked at her captain. She understood his anger. They had raided human supply ships 3 times in the past month. They had killed crews and stolen cargo. And each time Earth had responded with more talks, more offers of peace, more extended hands that the simply slapped away. "We are not them," said quietly. "The moment we become like them, we lose something we can never get back. Open the channel." His jaw tightened, but he obeyed. The screen flickered, and a face appeared. Warlord was massive even by standards. His shell was covered in battle scars, and his mandibles clicked with what might have been amusement. "Human Admiral," said, his voice translated through the ship's computers. "You are still here. I thought you would have run by now." "Warlord," replied, keeping her voice steady. "You are entering space protected by the Galactic Assembly's treaties. I must ask you to withdraw your ships. We can discuss whatever concerns you have at the negotiation table." Made a sound that the translator could not process. It might have been laughter. "Negotiation," he repeated. "You humans and your negotiations. Do you know what my soldiers call your species? The soft ones. You bleed easily. You break easily. And yet you keep talking as if words could stop blades." "Words have stopped many wars," said. "Not this one." The channel closed, stood still for a moment, her hands clasped behind her back. Down on Nu's surface, life continued as normal. Dr. Lee walked through the halls of the Central Medical Center, checking on her patients. She was one of the best in human space, and her hospital treated species from across the galaxy. Today she had helped a trader with an infected wound. The trader had been surprised that a human would help him, given the tensions between their peoples. "Why do you help me?" he had asked. Had simply smiled. "Because you needed help, that's enough reason." The trader had left confused but grateful. That was often how aliens reacted to human kindness. They didn't understand it. Some thought it was a trick. Others thought humans were simply too stupid to know better. In the colony's military base, Sergeant ran his squad through training exercises. He was a large man with a quiet voice and hands that had seen too much violence during Earth's last civil conflict, decades ago. He had joined the Colonial Guard hopping for peace. So far, he had found it. "Sergeant," one of his soldiers called out, "are the rumors true? Are they really coming?" Paused. He had heard the same rumors. Everyone had. "The Admiral will handle it," he said. "She always does." But even as he spoke, he felt something cold in his stomach. A feeling he hadn't felt since the old wars on Earth. The feeling that something terrible was coming. In orbit, Admiral watched as the fleet grew closer. 17 warships against her 12. Her ships were designed for defense and patrol, not heavy combat. The ships were built for one purpose only: destruction. Admiral said, his voice now carrying a note of fear. They're charging weapons. Closed her eyes for just a moment. 60 years of peace, 60 years of building something better, and now this. Raise shields, she ordered, and open another channel. We will keep trying until the very end. Shook his head but did as commanded. The channel opened, appeared again, his eyes gleaming. Still talking, soft one. There is always another way, said. Whatever you want, we can discuss it. Trade rights, territory, resources, tell me what you need. Leaned closer to the screen. What we need your world, we need your people as slaves, we need your ships as scrap, and we need you to understand something, human. The galaxy belongs to the strong. You are not strong, you are prey. We would prefer to discuss this peacefully, said, her voice never wavering. Showed his mandibles in what might have been a smile. Surrender your world, soft ones, or we will take it over your corpses. The channel went dead, and in the darkness of space, the fleet began its approach. Looked at her crew, at the world below her that held millions of lives. Send a message to Earth, she said quietly. Tell them we tried. The first explosion tore through the night sky of new like a second sunrise. Dr. Lee was in her office when the windows shattered. She fell to the floor, covering her head as glass rained down around her. Alarms screamed through the hospital. Red emergency lights painted everything in the color of blood. She ran to the window and looked up. The sky was on fire. She could see the flashes of battle in orbit, tiny points of light that meant ships were dying. Human ships, her ships. In space, Admiral Park gripped the arms of her command chair as another blast rocked the eternal dawn. Smoke filled the bridge. Sparks flew from broken consoles. Half her crew was already dead. Shields at 12%, someone shouted. The bright morning is gone, another voice called. The peaceful harbor is breaking apart. Watched her fleet die around her, 12 ships against 17, but it wasn't just the numbers. The weapons tore through human shields like paper. Their ships moved with a speed and aggression that her defensive vessels could not match. This wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. Admiral's voice cut through the chaos. His face was bloody, a deep cut running across his forehead. We need to retreat. Get the evacuation ships moving. We can save some of them. Looked at the main screen. New hung below them, blue and green and beautiful. 4.2 million people, families, children, old people who had come here to retire in peace, young people who had come here to build new lives. Begin evacuation, she ordered. All civilian ships launch immediately. Military vessels will cover their escape. Admiral, we can't hold them for long. Then we hold them for as long as we can. Nodded, there was no argument in his eyes anymore. No frustration, just duty. I'm taking the hammer out, he said. My weapons are still online. I can buy you time. Thanks. It's been an honor, Admiral. He saluted and ran for the shuttle bay. Watched him go. She wanted to call him back. She wanted to find another way. But there was no other way. There never had been. The had made sure of that. On the surface, ran through the hospital corridors, pulling patients from their beds, shouting orders at nurses who were too scared to move. The building shook with each new explosion. Through the windows, she could see descending from the sky like metal insects. Everyone to the basement, she screamed. Move, move now. But she knew, even as she said it, that the basement wouldn't save them. Nothing would save them. Sergeant stood at the entrance of a refugee shelter, his weapon raised, his soldiers beside him. The streets were filled with running people, screaming people, people carrying children and dragging the elderly. Behind them, soldiers marched through the smoke. They did not take prisoners, had heard the stories. He had never believed them. How could any species be so cruel? Now he watched as soldiers opened fire on civilians. Men, women, children. They killed without hesitation, without mercy, without any emotion at all. "Open fire," ordered. His soldiers fought. They fought well. But there were too many and their weapons were too powerful. One by one his people fell, took a blast to his shoulder, then another to his leg. He kept shooting until his weapon was empty, then he threw it aside and pulled his knife. A soldier stood before him, towering and terrible, looked up at the creature that was about to kill him. "Come on then," he said through bloody teeth. The raised its weapon, and then light filled the sky, a massive explosion in orbit bright enough to turn night into day. The soldier looked up, distracted for just a moment. Drove his knife into the gap between the creature's shell plates. The fell, but more were coming, always more. In orbit, Captain's ship, the Hammer, was burning. His crew was dead. His weapons were dry, but his engines still worked. He aimed his ship at the largest carrier, the one launching all the one carrying Warlord himself. "This is for new," he whispered. He pushed the engines to full power. They tried to move, but they were too slow. The Hammer struck the carrier like a fist of fire. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. When the light faded, the carrier was gone, broken into a million pieces. But it wasn't enough. There were still more ships, still more soldiers on the ground. The killing continued for 6 more hours. When Earth's emergency fleet finally arrived, they found a graveyard. The orbital stations were gone. The cities were burning. Bodies lay in the streets, in the buildings, in the fields. Human bodies, millions of them. Admiral Park was found in the wreckage of her flagship, barely alive. Her legs were crushed. Her lungs were filling with blood, but she was still breathing. The rescue team loaded her onto a medical shuttle. As they worked to save her life, she grabbed one of the medics with her remaining strength. "How many?" she asked. "How many survived?" The medic looked away. "We're still counting, Admiral." "Tell me." "About 400,000, maybe less." Closed her eyes. 4.2 million people, only 400,000 left. The rest were gone, killed by creatures who saw them as nothing more than prey. "Get me a channel to Earth Command," she said. "Admiral, you need surgery." "Get me the channel." They did. The face of General Shin appeared on the small screen. She was an older woman with iron hair and eyes that had seen every war in human history. "Admiral Park," the general said, "we're coming, every ship we have." "It's too late for that," said. "They killed them all, they killed everyone." General Shin was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was cold as the void between stars. "What do you need, Admiral?" Looked at the screen. She thought of who had died to save 30 minutes. She thought of still fighting somewhere on the surface. She thought of in her hospital full of patients who had trusted humans to protect them. "I need you to show them," said. "What happens when you hurt us?" General Shin nodded slowly. "Rest now, Admiral. When you wake up, the galaxy will be different." The channel closed. The medics put under. And somewhere in the ruins of Nu, the last survivors huddled in the darkness, waiting for a rescue that would come too late for most of them. The galaxy had called humans the soft ones, the polite species, the ones who smiled and talked and never fought back. That was about to change. For 3 weeks, humanity said nothing. The Galactic Assembly waited for angry words. They waited for demands for justice. They waited for humans to cry and beg for help, the way weak species always did when stronger ones hurt them. But the human seats in the assembly hall remained empty. Human ambassadors did not answer calls. Human ships pulled back from every border, every station, every shared space. The galaxy grew confused, then it grew amused. "The soft ones are hiding," laughed a diplomat from a warrior species. "They finally understand their place." "Perhaps they are preparing to surrender," said another. "It would be the smart thing to do." Warlord, now a hero among the Dominion, gave speeches about human weakness. He displayed pieces of destroyed human ships as trophies. He showed recordings of Nu's fall, of humans running and screaming and dying. His people cheered. Other species watched and learned a lesson. Humanity was not to be respected. Humanity was to be used. But deep beneath the mountains of Earth, in facilities that did not appear on any map, something was waking up. General Shin walked through halls of cold steel and colder purpose. She was 70 years old, and she had spent the first half of her life fighting in Earth's last great war, a conflict so terrible that humanity had sworn never to repeat it. When that war ended, the survivors had locked away their weapons, buried their war machines, and tried to become something better. For 60 years they had succeeded. For 60 years humans had been kind. Now General Shin opened doors that had not been opened in decades. She activated systems that the Galactic Assembly had banned. She called scientists and soldiers out of retirement, people who remembered what humanity used to be. "Are you sure about this?" asked one of her officers, a young man who had never known war. "Once we start, we can't go back." Shin looked at him with eyes that held no doubt. "We went back the moment they killed our people. We're just finishing what they started." On Earth's surface, Prime Minister stood before the United Human Council. The room was silent. Every face was stone. Some had tears drying on their cheeks. Many had lost family on new. All of them had lost something precious, the belief that peace was possible. "For 60 years, the Prime Minister said, his voice filling the chamber, we showed the galaxy what we could become. We built instead of destroying. We healed instead of hurting. We offered hands of friendship to species that spat in our faces. And we did this because we believed, truly believed, that the universe could be better than it was." He paused, his hands gripped the podium. "The Dominion has shown us otherwise. They killed 3.8 million of our people, not soldiers, civilians, children. They killed them because they thought we were weak. They killed them because no one stopped them." His voice hardened. "No one will stop us either." He looked up at the council. "Today, I am authorizing the activation of all restricted military assets. Today, I am calling up every reserve unit in human space. Today, I am ending our participation in the Galactic Assembly's weapons limitation treaties." He leaned forward. "Today, humanity remembers what it was before it tried to be kind, and the Dominion will learn why we chose kindness in the first place." The council voted. It was unanimous. In a military hospital, Admiral Park woke from surgery. Her legs were gone, replaced by metal and wire. Her lungs had been rebuilt with synthetic tissue. She was more machine than human now, but she was alive. A doctor stood beside her bed. "Admiral, we've done everything we could. You'll be able to walk again, to fight again if you choose." Sat up slowly. She felt the cold metal of her new legs, the strange sensation of breathing with lungs that weren't quite her own. "Where is my fleet?" she asked. "Gone, Admiral, but they're building you a new one." The doctor paused. "They're calling it the First Retribution Fleet, 500 ships, and they want you to command it." 500, blinked. "We don't have 500 warships." The doctor smiled grimly. "We do now. Apparently we always did. We just kept them hidden." Understood then. All those years of peace, all those smiles and negotiations, humanity had never truly stopped being what it was. It had simply chosen not to be. The weapons had always been there, waiting in the dark. In another part of Earth, Dr. Lee sat in a laboratory. She had survived new, she still didn't know how, had found her in the ruins of her hospital, half buried under rubble, and had carried her to an evacuation shuttle with his own wounded body. They had been among the last to escape. Now she was being asked to use her knowledge of alien biology for war. "They communicate through chemical signals," a military scientist explained. "Pheromones. If we can disrupt those signals, their soldiers will become confused, disorganized. They might even turn on each other." Stared at the data on her screen. She had spent her whole life using science to heal. Now they wanted her to use it to kill. She thought of new. She thought of her patients, the ones she couldn't save. She thought of the soldier who had walked into her hospital and shot a child in his mother's arms. "Show me what you have," she said quietly. Across human space, the machinery of war began to move. Shipyards that had been silent for generations roared back to life. Soldiers trained with weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Scientists worked day and night on technologies that had been forbidden. And in the great hall of the Galactic Assembly, human seats remained empty. Other species joked about human cowardice. Some proposed dividing up human territory. A few even suggested allying with the. Then, on the 21st day of silence, a human ship appeared at the assembly station. A single shuttle, carrying a single ambassador. He walked into the great hall and every species fell silent. He carried no weapons. He wore simple clothes. He smiled the same gentle smile that humans had always worn. "Honored representatives," he said, his voice calm and pleasant. "Humanity thanks you for your expressions of sympathy regarding the new incident. We have taken time to mourn our dead and to reflect on our place in the galaxy." The representatives relaxed. This was the humanity they knew, polite, soft, harmless. "We have reached a decision," the ambassador continued. "We will not be seeking assistance from the assembly. We will not be filing formal complaints. We will not be asking for sanctions or peacekeeping forces." Confused murmurs rippled through the hall. "Instead," the ambassador said, and his smile never wavered, "we will be handling this matter ourselves. Prime Minister asked me to deliver a message to all of you, and to the Dominion especially." He looked directly at the representatives, who sat in their section with arrogant expressions. "The message is this: humanity has always believed in peace. We still do, but the Dominion has made peace impossible. So now," he paused, "now we stop being polite." He turned and walked out of the hall. The next day, the first Retribution fleet departed Earth's orbit. 500 warships, bristling with weapons the galaxy didn't know existed, crewed by humans who had finally stopped smiling. The Dominion would learn why humanity had chosen kindness. Because the alternative was so much worse. The Dominion expected retaliation. They had prepared for it. Warlord had gathered his fleets, fortified his bases, and waited for the humans to come seeking revenge. He was almost excited. Finally, the soft ones would fight, and he would crush them properly this time. He was not prepared for what actually came. The first sign of trouble was at Outpost 7, a military station on the edge of their territory. One moment the station was there. The next moment it was gone, not destroyed in battle, not damaged in an attack, simply erased as if a god had reached down and removed it from existence. The ship sent to investigate found nothing, no debris, no bodies, no sign that anything had ever been there at all. Then the same thing happened to Outpost 9, then Outpost 12, then 3 patrol fleets that vanished without sending a single distress signal. Warlord demanded answers. His scientists had none. His soldiers were beginning to whisper about ghosts and curses. For the first time in his life, felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of her new flagship, It was named for the man who had died to save 30 minutes, 30 precious minutes that had allowed 400,000 people to escape. She would not waste his sacrifice. "Report," she said. "Target elimination complete," her tactical officer replied. "All 7 forward bases have been neutralized. No survivors, no signals sent." Nodded. The weapons humanity had hidden were beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. Quantum that could erase matter from existence. Stealth systems so advanced that ships could pass within meters of enemy sensors without being detected. AI warfare programs that could hack and disable entire fleets in seconds. These were weapons from Earth's dark past, from an age when humans had nearly destroyed themselves. They had sworn never to use them again. They had hidden them away and tried to become better. Now they remembered why they had built them. Set course for the next target, ordered, and open a channel to the command frequency. The channel opened. His face appeared and saw fear in his eyes for the first time. "Admiral Park," he said, "I thought you were dead." "I was," replied, "but your people only killed my body. You should have aimed for my spirit." She leaned forward. "You killed 3.8 million of my people. Now I'm going to tell you what happens next. For every civilian who died on Nu, I will kill 3.8 million of your soldiers. This is not a threat. This is not a negotiation. This is simple arithmetic." His mandibles clicked in what might have been nervous laughter. "You cannot be serious. That would be. 14 trillion deaths finished." "Yes, I know, we did the math." Her voice was ice. "Surrender now unconditionally and we will stop at 10 million. Continue to resist and we will not stop until the number is reached or until there are no more left to kill. Choose." The channel went dead, did not surrender. Major dropped from the sky in a metal pod, surrounded by 500 soldiers of the new Memorial Division. They landed on a military world in the middle of its largest fortress, and they came out fighting. Had changed since Nu. His wounds had healed, but something inside him had not. He no longer felt fear. He no longer felt mercy. He felt only purpose, to make sure that what happened to Nu never happened again. His soldiers were the same. Many of them were survivors of the massacre. All of them had lost someone. They fought with a fury that terrified even veteran warriors. Humans, it turned out, were endurance predators. They didn't tire. They didn't stop. They didn't forget. The fortress fell in 6 hours, stood in its command center, surrounded by the bodies of soldiers, and sent a message to Admiral Park. "Target secured, minimal casualties. What are your orders?" "Move to the next target," Park replied. "We have a long list." On a moon orbiting the, Dr. Lee watched her creation do its terrible work. The pheromone disruptor was simple in concept, a device that broadcast false chemical signals, the same signals they used to communicate and coordinate. When activated, it turned soldiers against each other. 200,000 warriors were stationed on this moon. Within 3 hours of the disruptor's activation, they had torn themselves apart. Watched the footage with empty eyes. She had designed this weapon. She had made it work. She had just killed 200,000 living beings without firing a single shot. A human soldier approached her. "Doctor, are you all right?" Didn't answer. She thought of her hospital on Nu. She thought of her patients. She thought of the child who had been shot in his mother's arms. "I'm fine," she said finally. "Prepare the next disruptor. We have more moons to clear." The war lasted 8 months. In that time, humanity did not lose a single major battle. The Dominion, one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy, was systematically dismantled by a species they had called weak. The Galactic Assembly watched in stunned silence. Species that had once mocked human kindness now locked their borders and prayed. They had never imagined that the soft ones, the polite species, could be capable of such destruction. They had never understood why humanity had chosen peace. Now they understood. Humanity had not chosen peace because they were weak. They had chosen peace because they knew what they were capable of. They had seen what war did to them, what it turned them into, and they had decided to be something else. They had forced them to remember. Warlord made his last stand on the, surrounded by the remains of his once mighty fleet. Admiral Park's armada filled the sky above him, 500 ships that had grown to 700 as more joined from human space. "Surrender," Park's voice came through every speaker on the planet. "This is your final chance." Looked at his advisors, his generals, his priests. They were all afraid now. The great warrior race, the conquerors of 100 worlds, reduced to trembling insects hiding from human wrath. "We surrender," said his voice breaking. "We surrender unconditionally." Park's response was cold. "Accepted, but the killing does not stop until our terms are met in full. You have 1 hour to begin compliance. If you resist, if you delay, if you attempt any deception, we will resume operations, and we will not offer mercy again." In that moment, the galaxy learned a truth that humanity had always known. There were no species more dangerous than humans, not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the most numerous, but because when humans decided to fight, they did not stop. They did not forgive. They did not forget. They had awakened something terrible, and now the whole galaxy had to live with the consequences. The war was over. The Dominion existed only in history books now, its empire dissolved, its military destroyed, its worlds placed under human supervision. Warlord, once the most feared conqueror in the galaxy, had been tried for crimes against humanity and executed. His body was buried in an unmarked grave. His name was forbidden to be spoken with honor. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the one last time. Through the windows, she could see the peaceful now, its cities intact but its people defeated. Humans had not destroyed their civilization. They had simply removed its ability to hurt anyone ever again. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "the Galactic Assembly is calling. They want to speak with you." Almost smiled. The Assembly. For 8 months they had watched humanity tear through one of the galaxy's great powers, and they had done nothing. Some had even considered helping Now they wanted to talk. "Put them through." The face of the Assembly chairman appeared, a creature from a species that had always been neutral in galactic affairs. His expression was carefully blank, but could see the fear behind his eyes. "Admiral Park," he said, "on behalf of the Galactic Assembly, I wish to discuss the terms of peace." "Peace was established when the surrendered," replied. "What is there to discuss?" "There are concerns." The chairman chose his words carefully. "Some member species feel that humanity's response was disproportionate. There is talk of sanctions, investigations, perhaps even military action to ensure humanity does not threaten the stability of the galaxy." Was silent for a long moment, then she laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Disproportionate," she repeated. "They killed 3.8 million civilians. We killed their military capability. We left their civilians alive. We even left their government intact, simply under supervision. And you call this disproportionate? The scale of destruction was necessary to ensure this never happens again." His voice hardened. "Let me be clear, Chairman. Humanity has no interest in conquest. We never did. We wanted peace. We built hospitals and schools on alien worlds. We shared our technology and our kindness with species that treated us like insects. And what did we receive in return? Mockery, disrespect, and eventually genocide." She leaned forward. "If any species attacks human civilians again, our response will be the same. If the Assembly attempts sanctions or military action against humanity, our response will be the same. We did not start this war. We ended it, and we will end any war that is brought to us." She paused. "Do you understand?" The chairman was pale. "I understand, Admiral." "Good, then we have nothing more to discuss." The channel closed, turned to her crew. They were watching her with something that might have been pride or might have been sorrow. She couldn't tell anymore. "Set course for Earth," she said. "It's time to go home." On Nu, the rebuilding had begun. The colony that had held 4.2 million people now held only 500,000, including new arrivals who had come to help restore what was lost. The cities were being rebuilt. The fields were being replanted, but the scars remained. Major walked through the memorial garden, where 3.8 million names were carved into black stone walls that stretched for kilometers. He found the names he was looking for. His squad members who had died defending the refugee shelter. His friends who had fallen beside him while he somehow survived. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the stones. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." He had retired from the military after the war. He couldn't fight anymore. Not because his body was broken, but because something inside him was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. He had become what humanity needed him to be. Now he needed to find what he would be next. He knelt in the garden and began to plant flowers. It was small work, quiet work, but it was work that created life instead of ending it, and that was enough. Dr. Lee had returned to medicine. She led a new program on studying their biology, not to find weaknesses, but to understand them, to help them. Why? A young asked her one day. He was a child born after the war, innocent of his species' crimes. Why do you help us? We killed your people. Looked at the child. She saw his confusion, his fear, his desperate hope that not all humans were monsters. Because you need help, she said simply. And because if I only helped people who had never done wrong, I would help no one at all, including myself. The child didn't fully understand, but he would someday. That was the hope held on to. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly, a new organization was formed. The New Accords, a peacekeeping force led by humanity. Other species joined reluctantly, knowing they had no choice. Humans were too powerful now to oppose, but some joined willingly, hoping that humanity's commitment to peace might be real. Admiral Park was offered command of this force. She accepted on one condition: they would protect all species equally, even former enemies, even the. Peace requires justice, she told the assembly, but it also requires mercy. We showed the galaxy what we can do when we're angry. Now let us show you what we can do when we're not. Years passed. The galaxy slowly healed. Humans returned to their hospitals and schools, their farms and factories. They smiled again. They offered help to those who needed it, but they never forgot, and neither did anyone else. On the anniversary of Noose Fall, a young alien diplomat visited Earth. She was curious about the species that had changed the galaxy, the species that was both so kind and so terrible. She met a human ambassador, an older man with gentle eyes and hair. He welcomed her warmly, showed her around Earth's beautiful cities, and answered her questions with patience and honesty. Finally, she asked the question that had brought her across the stars. Why, she said, why did your species spend 60 years being weak? You had these weapons, you had this power, you could have ruled the galaxy. The ambassador smiled. It was the same gentle smile humans had always worn. We weren't pretending to be weak, he said. We were hoping we'd never have to show anyone what strong looks like. We wanted to be kind. We still want that. But the universe taught us something a long time ago, before we ever left our planet. What's that? The ambassador's smile faded. He looked out the window at Earth's green hills and blue skies, at the world that had given birth to humanity and all its contradictions. You can be kind or you can survive, he said. For 60 years the galaxy let us be both. The Dominion made us choose. He turned back to face her. We will always choose survival. We will always protect our people. And we will always remember what that costs us. The diplomat looked at him for a long moment. She saw the kindness in his eyes. She also saw the steel beneath it. Are you still the soft ones? She asked. The ambassador thought about this. He thought about New. He thought about the war. He thought about Park and Lee and all the others who had done terrible things for good reasons. We try to be, he said finally. Every day we try to be kind, but we never forget what we are, and neither should you. The diplomat nodded slowly. She understood now. Humanity was not a species of warriors. They were not a species of conquerors. They were something more complicated. A species that had looked into the darkness within themselves, had learned to fear it, and had spent generations trying to be better. But the darkness was still there. It would always be there. And anyone who threatened humanity would learn exactly what that darkness looked like. The galaxy had called humans the polite species, the soft ones. They were still polite, they were still soft. But now everyone knew what lay beneath the surface, and no one would ever forget.